do you have your will in place? Do you have your power of attorney? The people you've nominated in your super, can they actually get access to that? How much do you need to retire comfortably? So retirees, so 5 questions they usually ask. One of them is, do I have enough to retire comfortably? And how long will it last? So this is a very, very tricky question because it depends on a lot. It depends on how much you want to spend when you retire, when you want to retire, okay, and how do you want that money to be invested as well. So by the time we know those 3 things, we can give you a very reliable gauge as to, okay, how much do you need to retire comfortably? You know, there's some heuristics which are just shortcuts people can use to actually get to that number. And, you know, I'll say multiply by 20, whatever you think you need to retire on. And that might be just a short answer, but sometimes you want something specific. So for example, if you need $100,000 to retire, you multiply that by 20, it means you need $2 million net assets. However, I would always say sit down with someone so we can actually give you what exactly is the amount you need. Okay, next question is, what's the most tax-effective way to draw an income from my super or investments? Okay, I love this question as well. And look, this is tied to the retirees. So generally for retirees, right, we want as much money as we can inside super because super is still one of the most tax-effective places to grow your wealth, especially then. But if you're in that situation where you've then had lots of assets outside, you know, we can then work out, okay, what are the distributions from that? What are you going to get taxed on that regardless? And we want to probably drain that first before going to things like your super. And I think another key thing as well is, do you want to pass these assets on to the next generation? How can we factor that in? Because that would then determine, okay, what is the most effective and tax effective way to take the money? Because for example, if you want to pass that on to, you know, the next generation, things like early inheritance might be a good option then, because that way you will generally pay a little bit less taxes than if you pass it on later. And if you don't need that amount as well, so that's a key thing to factor on. But look, that's a balancing scenario. But generally, we'll probably want people to drain what is outside super if it's not that much, and then grow what's inside super. That way they can get more tax benefits down the track and have it in the most tax efficient way. And sometimes as well, moving some of those funds that are in the investment outside into super, if possible, is another good way to actually plan the most tax effective way to draw an income. So the third question is, can I still qualify for age pension if I have super and other assets? Generally, the answer to that is yes, but it depends on how much of those assets you have. Things like the family home are not counted as an asset. Things like life insurance as well. Sorry, not life insurance. Things like life annuities as well have a lower count towards the income and the asset test. So there are structures or there are ways we can structure things to ensure that you're maximizing the most you can get from the age pension if you're close. If you're too far off the asset test, then you'll be in a situation where it might be very hard for you to get any age pension in that regard. Question 4. So is, how do I ensure my spouse and family is looked after if something happens to me? And this is still aligned to the retirees as well. So look, this really comes down to having a good estate plan. You know, do you have your will in place? Do you have your power of attorney? Are the nominations in your super really aligned to what you want? The people you've nominated in your super, can they actually get access to that? Are they tax beneficiaries or not? So these are things we'll look at and then help you ensure that everything is coherent and moving towards ensuring your spouse and family are looked after if something unfortunate was to happen to you. Generally, retirees, it's a little bit too late to get things like insurance because one, is too expensive, and then you should be self-insured, okay? And so it's really ensuring that, okay, those nominations are right, and anything else you have in place, things like maybe having the house, joint assets or tenants in common really play an important role as well. So those things would look at and then guide you. Generally, we would work with a good estate lawyer as well, you know, but we understand the finances, super and all that. So they all need to work coherently together. Question 5, what should I be doing now to reduce the impact of aged care or medical cost? From an aged care perspective as a retiree, if you own your home, that can be translated into using or selling the home later on if you move into aged care, and then having the deposit you need for that. If you don't own your home, you would have to pay something called the daily accommodation payment, which is very similar to rent now, okay, if you're renting. And that means that, look, you would have to pay that cost ongoing. So the main thing around that is just planning. I think a huge amount of people will end up in aged care, okay, either in an aged care facility, or if you're on the high net worth end, an aged care, people helping you in your house, okay. Either way, you need to plan, because those will probably be the last 3 to 5 years of your life where you need lots of care, and that actually involves lots of money as well. From a medical cost perspective, it's just ensuring that, look, you're saving as well, because as you get older as well, you might want to try lots of private consult or remedies that things like Medicare might not cover, or private health insurance. So it's good to have some savings around that, and just have that at the back of your mind when you're mapping out your retirement.